Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the No DQ live recap of AEW Dynamite for November the 4th, 2020. We have AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view this coming Saturday night. I will be doing live results coverage at NoDQ.com. I will also be doing a post-pay-per-view live stream. So if you're not ordering the show, stay tuned to NoDQ.com to keep updated. I will also be giving my thoughts tonight on some of the NXT segments from this week's show. I sense both shows will be down in viewership this week because of the election and all of the news going on right now. People are focused on that. I will say this, AEW did a very solid job with the final build for this Saturday's pay-per-view. Let's go ahead and talk about it. We had our AEW Dynamite intro. We had Chris Jericho, Ortiz, and Sammy Guevara backstage. Jake Hager was also there, his face all cut up from his Bellator fight that he won. Jericho put him over, how Hager is now 3-0 in MMA. MJF interrupted the promo and said that Jericho will have a front row seat to see that MJF deserves a spot in the inner circle, because Jericho's going to be going out on commentary as MJF teams up with Wardlow against Ortiz and Guevara. Jericho said he's not sure if MJF is worthy of being in the inner circle, doesn't know if MJF has that killer instinct. MJF was not amused with this comment. He stormed to the ring, a man on a mission with something to prove. We had the tag match. JR brought up how this Saturday they are going to have 1,000 fans in attendance for the pay-per-view. And he said it's all legal. They're going to follow the CDC guidelines, social distancing, all that stuff. Wardlow did most of the work in the match, and MJF would take advantage of the situation. And then Sammy Guevara had a burst of offense, doing some dives. But then MJF, his response to the high-flying moves, a thumb to the eye. MJF got control again. However, Sammy Guevara stayed in the game and hit the go to hell on MJF. But Wardlow made the save. And then you had a spot where Wardlow took all three guys down in a Tower of Doom spot. Then he hit the F10 to Ortiz. Sammy made the save. Then Sammy was on the outside of the ring, and Serpentico was there at ringside, messing around, interfering in the match. Turns out it was Matt Hardy to set up the Elite Deletion match for this Saturday's pay-per-view. Meanwhile, in the ring, MJF tapped out to Ortiz, and then after the match, MJF, after tapping out Ortiz, he speared Jericho through the set that's right behind the announcers. Jericho was there. He stood up as MJF was walking over, and MJF just speared him right through the set. And then as MJF took his leave, Jericho had a smile on his face because MJF showed that he's got a little bit of that killer instinct. TJS with a $3 super chat. Thank you for that, Tyler. He says, I cannot focus on wrestling. Sick of the lies. Well, I'm not going to touch that one. I'll let the chat room decide if they want to chat with MJF about the debate. But I think the people in the chat room want the wrestling discussion. So as much as I appreciate the super chat, TJS, hashtag stick to the topic. We had Tony Schiavone interviewing Kenny Omega, and they were talking about the match with Adam Page this Saturday, where the winner gets the next opportunity at the AEW World title. Omega said he's destined to win the tournament, become the next champion. We then had Trent with Orange Cassidy and Chuck against Miro with Kip Sabian. This was Miro's first singles match in AEW and his first singles match since he was in WWE. So that would have been, 9 months ago? There was a recap of what happened during a live stream. Excalibur was trying to make peace between Miro and Trent, but it didn't work out. You had Miro in this camouflage gear, so he's got new best man gear. Looked okay. I mean, did not blow me away or anything, but hey, it's something new. Chuck and Kip were brawling on the outside of the ring. They ended up fighting all the way to the back. Penelope Ford tried to mess with Orange Cassidy, and he responded by taking her sunglasses and putting them on. He ended up being jumped by Long John Silver and the rest of the Dark Order. The match in the ring continued. Miro was dominating, but then Trent got back into it, made a comeback, hit a running knee for a near fall, and then he went to do a springboard move off the top, but he slipped on the top rope, and then he got hit with the Mashka kick or the game over kick, whatever you want to call it now. Miro put on the game over submission to pick up the victory, formerly the Accolade. And then after the match, Miro put on the submission again. Chuck and Kip ran back down. The fight continued. Miro and Kip got the upper hand. Miro got on the mic, started talking trash. And then out of nowhere, Orange Cassidy came off the top rope with the orange drop onto Miro and Kip. So it was an okay segment. I agree with TGS somewhat. I really do not care much about Miro at this stage of the game. I want to see him winning squash matches. I don't want to see him in competitive matches right now, especially with guys that are tag team wrestlers. Now, I will say this. Trent is a bit taller than most of the AEW roster, so it's a little bit more believable, but still, I want to see Miro destroying people in quick 1 to 2 minute matches, build him up as a monster. I think it's too soon for him to be having competitive matches. And Kevin, I do agree with you that it is a step up from Janela and Sunny Kiss. I will say that much. Moving on here, we had JR interviewing Adam Page. Adam Page was drinking, and JR seemed a bit concerned about this and asked Page if Page is nervous. And Page said, yes, he admits it. Because last year, he was confident he was going to win the AEW World title from Chris Jericho. Did not happen. And if he loses again, all he's going to have left is his drink. And JR advised Page to drink in moderation. Well said by JR, and kind of a weird character development for Page that he's an alcoholic and the drinking might cost him his match. It's intriguing, I guess. We had a promo for FTR versus the Young Bucks. You had various people talking about the match. SCU, the first tag team champions. Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, Billy, don't call him Gunn. They all talked about the match. A lot of tag team veterans. Nice little segment here. We had Team Taz come to the ring for a promo. And Taz was talking about how he tried to get a meeting with Tony Khan. He spent 3 hours. He just wanted 2 minutes to talk, and Tony would not talk to him. So Taz came to the ring with a live mic to get his thoughts across. He talked about the ranking system, how Brian Cage is 10-1, and that one loss to Moxley doesn't even count because Cage never gave up or was pinned. And then Taz talked about how Ricky Starks isn't even ranked, and that is horseshit. Starks talked on the mic for a bit, said he has proven himself, and he wants to know why they could not get a match for the pay-per-view. Taz said that people like Cody and Darby Allin, they have a pay-per-view match, but they're both spoiled and entitled. And Taz talked about how they work hard, but it's actually Team Taz that's getting worked. And he said that this Saturday there will be an FTW presence. Maybe that's going to be a run-in or something. I really hope it's not another match, because I do not want more matches. If this show was starting at 8 o'clock, I would like it to end by 11. I would really like the show to start at 7, but I guess that's just wishful thinking on my part. Tony Khan, if by any chance you get this message, can we start the pay-per-views earlier? I would appreciate it. The one and only Caleb Jacobs with a very generous $20 super chat. Thank you so much for that, Caleb. I really do appreciate it. He left no comment, but again, I thank you very much for that, Caleb. We had Private Party come out for their match with the Young Bucks. They made their entrance with Matt Hardy, but then Matt Hardy was attacked by Sammy. Sammy gave Matt the twist of fate on the staging area. During the match, Matt Jackson of the Young Bucks was selling his ankle because FTR attacked him the other week, hurt his ankle. However, Matt still managed to do some of his signature high-flying moves. However, it caught up with him, and Private Party got the advantage. Matt was in the corner. He was hurt, and he could not even tag into his partner, Nick. But he did manage to save Nick from being pinned as Private Party hit the gin and juice. Matt made the save, and then Matt was finally able to tag in. And Quinn rolled up Matt the same way that he did back in 2019 on that Dynamite tag match where Private Party pulled up the upset. However, Matt managed to reverse it, got a near fall, and then Quinn reversed it again, got another near fall. And then finally, Matt and Nick hit the BTE trigger to pin Quinn, getting their win back from 2019. And the one and only Caleb Jacobs with another very generous $10 super chat. Thank you, Caleb. Says, I apologize for the political talk in the past. No disrespect intended. Not a problem, Caleb, but as you guys know, I do try to keep it wrestling related. I will read your comments as long as they're not overly offensive or hateful. I will read your comments. So if you want to endorse a political candidate, I'll read your comment. Doesn't mean I agree with it, but I will read anybody's comment as long as it's respectful and it's not any kind of hate being sent to anybody. So there you go. If you want to send something non-wrestling, go for it, but I would prefer wrestling topics. Now, back to the review. After the match was over, FTR attacked Matt. They hit the Goodnight Express, and then they were going to do the Brian Pillman ankle segment where they were going to wrap the chair around Matt's ankle and stomp on it again. But Kenny Omega, well, I should say Adam Page came out first. Page made the save, and then Omega came out as well to make the save. So you had the Elite reunited here for a few moments. Omega and Page ended up doing a fist bump, but then they had some heated words. Lots of build-up for this. Like I said at the beginning, AEW did a very good job building up the pay-per-view for Saturday. So in that case, it was a successful show. If you look at it from that perspective, AEW, the goal of the go-home show is to get people buying the pay-per-view. And I think they did a very solid job. We had Jon Moxley confront Eddie Kingston in a segment, a face-off, but if they touched, the match was off. I always find these segments a little odd because why would the promoter risk their big box office match just to have this segment where neither guy can touch each other? It's just weird to me. Like, if I was a promoter, I would never want a segment like this because this is my cash cow. These are my world title contenders, and I want this match to happen at all costs. I don't want it to be jeopardized. So I always found it weird. It's been done a lot, and it makes for good segments, I will say that. I think back to like Steve Austin and Triple H. They had their angle where they could not touch. It's been done many times. Like, what happens if it gets canceled? You're just not going to have a world title match on pay-per-view? I never understood the logic. And this isn't necessarily a shot at AEW because WWE has done it too. I've just never gotten that whole concept where you're going to cancel the match. Then what? No world title match? Does Moxley face somebody else? Like, they never explain it. Anyways, segment was really good here. Eddie turned up the heat, cut a great promo as he always does. He said, this isn't a game. He's going to take the title, the only title that matters. And he had to sell out. Moxley, he was happy for Eddie. And by the way, these guys, they were literally nose to nose, almost mouth to mouth, to the point where I thought they were going to start making out. It was very intense how close they were getting. The one and only Caleb Jacobs with an $11 super chat, another very generous one. Thank you, Caleb. Says, do you think Matt Sydal should be pushed to the TNT title? Feels like a wasted opportunity. Yeah, I think he should be utilized more. I think he's been on Dark a few times. I definitely think Matt Sydal should be on Dynamite more often. He's got some star power from his WWE run, and I'd like to see him in there with some of the up-and-comers in AEW. So yeah, let's get him on Dynamite more. Absolutely. Anyways, back to the segment. Moxley said he was happy that Eddie got signed and knew that Eddie's mom was happy. Eddie did not like his mom being referenced by Moxley. He got very offended by this. He started to turn his back to Moxley. Moxley turned the tables on Eddie. In this segment, you think that Eddie's going to push all the buttons, but Moxley was turning the tables, pushing Eddie's buttons, and said that, unfortunately, Eddie made a promise to his mother that he cannot keep. And Eddie was just ready to pounce. He was like, Moxley, you better be ready to kill me on Saturday because this is real. He stormed off, and then Moxley finished the promo by saying, this Saturday, Eddie will say the words, I quit. And I always wonder, in the back of my mind, are they going to pull a Mick Foley rock from the 99 Rumble because Moxley said, I quit? Could we have that screw job where that audio was played over the PA? One of Eddie Kingston's guys got the audio and messed around with it. So if there's any scenario where Eddie Kingston wins on Saturday, that could be it, where I quit is played over the PA just like the 1999 Royal Rumble. So keep that in mind. I know a lot of people on social media are really pushing for Eddie Kingston to win the title. I don't think it should happen. I think Moxley should retain because you got Moxley versus Adam Page or Kenny Omega potentially. I would like to see Eddie put up a great fight, which I'm sure he will, and I think that alone will elevate his stock, but I don't think he needs the title just yet. Johnny Boy with a $5 super chat says, Sting to AEW? Don't really like the idea. I'm hoping WWE is throwing us off for an awesome face-off with Undertaker at Survivor Series. I could see Sting showing up in AEW to help out. I don't think he's going to wrestle, but hell, he could potentially show up and endorse Darby Allin. Maybe Darby wins the title and Sting raises his hand or something like that to help give Darby the rub and take him to the next level. I could see that happening. Excuse me. By the way, NoDQ.com/merch. You can get this NoDQ mug. We got Team NoDQ, a little bit of wrestling terminology on the back. NoDQ.com/merch. Pick one up if you want to help support the website. Now we move on to Pac, who did this video package promo. He was not there in Jacksonville. He is still in quarantine. So I think that this was just done to remind everybody he's still around. He is still part of AEW, and he will be back. I think that was what this was meant to be. There were a bunch of versions of him on the screen, and he talked about getting stronger. He's faster. He's more obsessed now than ever. It was fun. Nice little way just to let people know he's still out there. At 9:30, what a shock here, right, guys? 9:30 p.m. Eastern every week. It's the same thing. It's the women's spot. Their spot on AEW Dynamite is 9:30 p.m. on Wednesday night. This is like the 4th or 5th week. Actually, last week they were like 9:20, but close enough. So for the 9:30 women's spot, we had Red Velvet with Brandy, and even Kevin in the chat room pointed it out. It's the mandatory AEW women's match at 9:30. Got to have the one women's spot. You got to have it at 9:30. Red Velvet, who was out there with Brandy Rhodes versus Nyla Rose. Brandy Rhodes. I wanted to say Brandy Rose for some reason. Brandy Rhodes versus Nyla Rose. And before the match, we had a little backstage segment with Butcher and Blade attacking Dustin and QT Marshall. I guess they got a match next week. Hikaru Shida, the women's champion, was at ringside watching the match. Nyla picked up a easy victory with the Beast Bomb. You know, good squash here, you know, build her up. This is the way to do it. Have her win squash matches. This is what Miro should be doing on Dynamite every week. He should be destroying people. Anyways, after this match was over, we finally got some Vicky Guerrero on the mic. Like, she's been the manager for Nyla Rose now for what, a month or two? And we've barely heard anything from her. She finally cut a promo. She mocked Red Velvet for losing despite having the CFO Brandy Rhodes out there. And then Vicky referred to Brandy as the chief bullshit officer and said that Tony Khan made Shida accept the challenge. I've noticed something. Tony Khan's name is being dropped more often on television. Now, Tony Khan has never really said anything about wanting to be a TV character, but I find it interesting that his name keeps getting dropped. It makes me wonder if we're getting closer to a point where Tony is actually going to become a TV character, because you really don't have an authority figure in AEW. If not Tony Khan, maybe somebody else. And maybe AEW doesn't want to do an authority figure, but I feel like maybe it would be nice to have. AEW hasn't had an authority figure. After Brandy and Vicky were taking verbal shots at each other, we had a fight break out between Shida and Nyla Rose. At ringside, all hell broke loose. Build was fine. I still really don't care about the match, but it was decent build up. We had a video package for Omega versus Paige. Again, several people interviewed, like Don Callis, and various moments from their run was shown, going back to when they won the tag team titles on the Jericho Cruise, and all of their up and down moments over the past 7-8 months. Nice little video package here. Good stuff. Then we had Darby Allin in a vignette, and there was a car which was spray painted the face of TNT on it. And Darby smashed the window with his skateboard and then drove off and then ran down a guy who was wearing a Cody mask. Very bizarre little segment here, but that's Darby Allin's style. And as Kevin says, Darby Allin is so weird. Indeed, he is. We had our main event of the evening, Cody and the Gun Club. By the way, Gun Club 9-0 in AEW. 9 wins on Dark, because this was their first actual match. At least I believe it's their first match on Dynamite, to the best of my knowledge and what I remember. Cody and the Gun Club against the Dark Order. Darby was in the rafters. Kind of a a lackluster main event in my opinion, just because it's Dark Order and they're not winning. You know, you got Long John Silver and Ten and Colt Cabana. I mean, come on now, they're not winning this. This match was basically a showcase for Austin Gunn, which I guess if you're going to do this match, you might as well give Gunn the rub a little bit. Austin Gunn got in some moves, hit the crossroads, and then hit his finisher, the quick draw, to pin 10, of course. You know, 10's the one guy you can beat whenever. Really, you could beat a couple of them, but hey. After the match was over, the rest of the Dark Order surrounded the ring. No Brody Lee, though. Orange Cassidy then hit Long John Silver with the Orange Punch. And then Cody cut a promo, talked about how the TNT executives, despite what Darby Allin thinks, the TNT executives would love to have Darby as the face of the network. And Cody said that he recruited Darby into AEW. And on top of that, he had to prove to everybody else that Darby was worthy of being in AEW. He had to go as far as to have a match with Darby to prove that Darby was the real deal. And then Cody, with his little shot at WWE, talked about how he left an empire and he overcame the odds, and that pisses a lot of people off. He talked about how Darby wants to be the champion, wants the ace belt, but the problem is Darby is not the ace. Nice little promo here from Cody. Again, solid build for the pay-per-view. I enjoyed the show overall. I thought it was a good show, good build-up. So letter grade for me is a solid B. I'm looking forward to the pay-per-view. Mission accomplished. I was looking forward to it before, but I think for a go-home show, they did a very solid job with it to do all the video packages, and you know, pretty much every match was hyped up, and they did something to further set up the matches and build some heat for the matches. So thumbs up show. Kev gives the show a solid B as well. And I will talk about NXT here a little bit. A few notes I have from the show. Israel Diaz gives the show AEW a B-. Kevin with a B-, and Bruce Marvel BB with a B. And John said no letter grade yet. He hasn't watched it yet. He will watch on Friday. Jeremy Dorset says a B for both shows, and Caleb Jacobs gives AEW an A+. So there you go. And Lars Kirsch with an A. There you go. So the highlights of NXT, we had the new faction from Pat McAfee come out for a promo. I guess their name is they're the new kings of NXT. So kind of like the kings of wrestling. They're the kings of NXT. And they actually had a reason for why Pete Dunne joined the group. Because it was back in the day, Roderick Strong had teamed up with Pete Dunne, turned against Dunne, and joined the Undisputed Era. So this was Pete Dunne's way of getting revenge. I like it. I like that they brought up that. I actually forgot about that, but it works in this storyline. So it actually makes perfect sense. And McAfee talked about it. This was the easiest thing he's ever done to put this group together. And they were there to honor the past. Undisputed Era, they made a huge impact, but McAfee said it's time to recognize that the future is better. They had a banner there. They were going to raise the banner above the ring, but then they voted to throw it in the trash instead. They took the banner, threw it in the trash, and McAfee said the banner's a piece of trash, just like Vic Joseph. Ouch. And then Pete Dunne poured in some gasoline, lit the trash can on fire, and the banner went up in flames. I like this segment. Good stuff here to build these guys up. Another big match on the show, or segment, whatever you want to call it. Toni Storm beat Shotzi Blackheart. Shotzi had her stupid babyface moment. Candice LeRae appeared on the big screen, and she had Shotzi's tank. And Shotzi was totally distracted by this. Got rolled up by Toni. Toni picked up the win. And then after the match, Candice got into a car, which I guess Ghostface had driven there. Yes, Ghostface was on this show, still not revealed. And Ghostface was also in a segment with Johnny Gargano earlier on the show at the Gargano home. Candice ran over the tank, and Shotzi reacted like somebody murdered her child. She was screaming. She was so upset over this. And John Millard in the chat says, I thought it was hilarious when the tank got run over. Why? I don't think that was how you're supposed to feel. I think you're supposed to feel sad, that Candice would do such a dastardly thing, destroy that tank, which is everything to Shotzi, apparently. It was like her child. And then the main event, we had Tommaso Ciampa defeating Velveteen Dream. Dream over. Dream continuing to just be a guy that's putting over other people, which I guess is the right way to go right now, considering people are still down on Dream. And I don't know if that's going to change or not, but right now Dream is just there to enhance other people. Ciampa looks good. He came out with his mask and everything. Doing well, but I still want to see him on the main roster. And my attitude is that, well, I know people are going to say, oh, he'll be ruined on the main roster, which, you know what? You might be right, especially if they change the music. But if there was ever a time for him to go to the main roster, now would be the time when they're not traveling. I know Ciampa mentioned that he doesn't want to do the full-time schedule. So now's the time. When WWE's not touring, now's the time to be on the main roster. But I understand people thinking it's a bad idea. I totally get it. And if he drops his music, that's going to suck big time. They might as well go back to giving him no music. But the music is awesome. And I could see the music being dropped, just like with Keith Lee. But yeah, NXT, from what I saw, pretty solid stuff here. Of course, not as big of a deal as last week. AEW focused on building up Full Gear. They did well with that. And that's all I got for tonight, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to everybody for the super chats, especially Caleb Jacobs. Big thank you for those. And I will be back with the No DQ review and then WWE Smackdown recap. And again, Saturday night, AEW Full Gear results coverage on NoDQ.com. And then afterwards, I'll be back with a live stream. If you enjoy the video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on notifications and tell a friend. That would help out a lot. I would very much appreciate it. Take care, everybody. Stay positive, especially with everything going on in the world right now. And stay safe. And I will see you guys